My name is Nick Tierce. I was the co-experience designer on the Overlook Film Festival 2018 Immersive game.
And my name is Scott Gillies, the same.
Well, the immersive game this year was a little bit different from previous years as we understand it because, well, we weren't involved with the previous years. We were brought in this year as the new sort of, I don't know how the best way to put it is, artist in residence.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
You owe me a Coke, my friend.
That's right.
But yeah, so the idea, I believe, is to invite a new group of designers in each year to give a new flavor to the immersive experiences. So the flavor of this year might have been different from the previous years leading up to it, and I would assume next year's would also be of a different variety.
And part of it too was to have that new flavor be a little bit different than previous years and be a little bit more inclusive, but also take into account the festival, so that way there's not just tons of content the whole time so you can't ever go to the festival, but being a little bit more clear about when you have breaks, when you can go see a movie instead of just always worrying about if I'm not, checking my phone every 5 seconds. So it's kind of, we're trying to do that and then also take advantage of this city that was a very different medium than the previous cities or previous location, and being aware of it and taking advantage of it, but also making sure it was safe.
And I think there's always, a cost and a benefit to each decision you make in a design sense. And we wanted purposefully, as a reflection of our own character, just as designers, the things that interest us, to take a different approach from what we understood of the previous years. Not having played it, it's really hard for us to have a good sense of it, but from what we read of people having experienced it, we thought we might try something that is a bit more what he described in terms of you'll be aware of the blocks. It's a little bit more egalitarian in the sense that the experience you read about other people having is available to you as well, not so much these one-off single path experiences for one person, which are great and encourage people to include those as well. But we thought it would be really interesting to test out what an experience that's not necessarily more scheduled, because they are discovering it. We are allowing them that sense of discovery, but allowing multiple catch-up points for them to feel like, oh, I can jump in even if I haven't.
Yeah, if you miss anything, you can come back in. You can at least say where the story was or is going, and then know, okay, this is the next location I need to go to. Even though you missed the discovery ability, which the players who are doing that, they get that extra kudos, but at least it gives players to be able to come back in and we don't keep winnowing the player base.
And it did necessitate us having a smaller player base this year, but we did want to say within the number that we're able to, within budgetary and just logistical restrictions, have X amount of people, that each one of those, if they so choose, could engage with it to the deepest level that we can provide, rather than saying, okay, rush to this because we've only got this many. No, it's like we want to at least plan for everyone to be able to do it if they want to, but obviously they're free to be more casual about it and just sort of attend the festival parties and observe, oh, something's going on over there. But if they then use that as a rabbit hole to get in deeper, we want to be prepped that it's like, oh, there's no more masks? Well, I feel like I'm not even part of it. We're like, no, we want to make sure everyone can have one that is registered for the game.
And then also actually reuse the party as a way to have some sort of interesting thing happen that is another rabbit hole to bring people back in if they had stepped out, so they get a good show, and everyone else who is not a part of it gets something fun to see and kind of get the basic story when you're at the parties.
That was always another goal as well. It's like even people who didn't register, to choose those three, the opening night party, the centerpiece party, and the closing party. Try and have three uniquely, even if you're not following the exact plot, just observing it will show some kind of escalation or some kind of structure that you can perceive. Oh, these people were sort of fighting, and then I saw people come in with these sort of masks, and then there was a murder that occurred between two of them. We're not quite sure what that was about, but then, my goodness, there was a series of rituals at the final party, and it seems like everyone came back together. We wanted that available to anyone who was onlooking, and then we were hanging between those the more investment-heavy puzzle hunts and kind of really deep engagement for the people who actually registered and were participating in this.
And also, the good thing about that party thing is it would allow the players to then tell that story to the non-players and have that, first of all, the social experience of being able to have something to talk to them and having a little bit of exclusivity with the pins, but then also being able to share the story at those moments and have a reason to talk at the parties.
Yeah, and any opportunity, this is always our goals, anytime we've worked together, is to find out how, structurally in our design, can we make people need to come together, meet each other, even if it's just staggering the time so that they might stumble onto each other while they're out through the city, helping each other out with the clues, and solving it together, or as he said, relaying the message to those who weren't able to get into that exclusive group of players.
Yes. So does that answer your question?
Absolutely. I think every project comes with its own set of challenges, and that's part of the reason we wanted to do this. Is there's not a lot of opportunities to reach this type of player base, to reach this audience in this context where they're not here just to do this. Some of them are.
Yes,
some of them are, and we're glad for them. But it's also this idea of, can we challenge ourselves to do that dance with another event where it's like, look, we're going to have these screenings, we're going to have these other things, we don't want to pull from this or that. You have to live in the margins and kind of lace into it. And that seemed like an opportunity that doesn't come up all the time. And so we were very fortunate to have a producer on hand, Molly Elfman, who was very familiar with the previous years. And so she was able to give us a sense of what had gone before, what didn't work, what did work, what are people going to expect, how can we both lean into those expectations and challenge them hopefully for the better and leave something behind in terms of learnings from a design perspective for whoever comes next.
And also sanity check a lot of the things that, crazy things that we would ask, and be like, really, you want to do that with the fire things? Okay, let's figure out how to make this work safely.
And as with any project, things started very broad, like what's everything we could do?
Can we burn a float in the middle of Bourbon Street? Can we do that?
When you choose your
red
theme,
flag maybe?
When you choose your theme as Mardi Gras, you get a lot of weird ideas. And so with Molly, we were very lucky to be able to do about a little more than a month prior to the festival. We were able to come out here for 4 or 5 days and scout locations, kind of get some relationships with local businesses that we thought
we're first of all, interesting location, because that's the thing. We want to make sure people go to a fun location.
Make sure they get out of the festival and see the town. That was one of our main things. It's like, this town is amazing. We fell in love with it during the scout.
Yes.
And so which ones have some overlap with some of the themes we're starting to coalesce, and are they game to let us work with them?
Yeah, who's going to play ball?
Yeah, who do we really trust? Because at the end of the day, we knew that as much, in Immersive, the improvisation that's required of the actor is also required on the side of the designer, because we might have a handshake deal with a business a month before, but when we show up and we have, can we put this skull in your window?
Or maybe they'll show up, late to work that day, and we're waiting outside in front of the door.
And you have to have those on-the-spot solves that, thankfully, we tried to predict. You can never predict everything, but you can build in redundancies that say, if this thing fails, we have these 3 options that are sort of modular. And thankfully, that didn't happen too much, but there were a few moments that we needed to.
And all that said, there's limitations of every project, and I think here what's really interesting, especially about the immersive stuff at this festival, which is a big part of the festival now. I think they've kind of been really growing. That's really amazing. Almost everything here is a passion project. It's not like a big money maker or big huge budgets and things like that. These are things that people really feel passionate about. They're trying to get these experiences to players and people to have that. And I think that you're gonna have all these limitations, but that's just how it is. You always got to roll with things.
And what's the coolest thing you can do within that box?
Yeah.
And Molly was so great to show us what the box was, and look, this is what we've got,
and here's what we've had before, and the problems we ran into, and this is certain players that this is how they're gonna play, so you should watch out for this. And so,
and do you want to lean into that, or do you want to design around it?
Yeah.
And we made those calls individually. As the sort of story and the themes began to form up, we thought, what are the most appropriate types of interactions for this, and can we really pull off this idea of having these paths available to everyone?
And then what tools do we have in our toolkit? Because that's the thing too, is you have all these limitations. There's only so many things you can do. We designed a ton of different things that we couldn't fit, and there's plenty of things that were left on the design floor, but
or even the cutting room floor.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Literally both. Actually, yes, with all the cutting of masks. But we also had a ton of different things, that we wanted to show, and so I basically had a bag of tricks, and both of us brought a ton of different things, half of which we didn't use, but that we were ready for if there was a change happening. Because you have these limitations of, you lose a space, whatever it is. We still had our own personal things that we'd bring just in case, like that were out of our,
and
our
not
bags.
just as a backup. It's like, because this is a passion project for us, there are things that from working together before, or just individually, like things we've always wanted to do, like little gags or tricks or illusions that we've always wanted to include in something but never found a place. Suddenly it's like, this is our chance, and we've got a fairly flexible theme that would let us tie those together. And we got a couple of those in there, a couple of them not, which means great. We just just save them. Save them
Yeah,
for the next
so
time.
got a list for future experiences. So the actors we work with, the majority were from here, and that was actually another goal. The festival is because the festival wants to, become a part of New Orleans. So we
That's
wanted
our
to
understanding of finding a home base somewhere.
I'm sure that they might have talked more about that, but we wanted to try to become a part of the culture here and bring in some of those actors. We talked to a bunch of people, found out what was going on in the ground and different changes that were happening in the theater space, and so we tried as best we could to get as many people local. I think we had one that wasn't.
One that wasn't, but was very familiar with the area.
And I think
been from here previously and was more than willing to come here for the weekend to be a part of it because they were very much on this wavelength, and we appreciated that.
Yeah, and it was a challenge for casting just because we're both in LA and out here, so we did the best we could with having. We're lucky we had some great help here. Michael was very helpful.
Yeah, we had a co-producer, Michael Arcos, who is I like to think of the New Orleans Immersive king, or the liaison of the New Orleans Immersive.
I think. Yes,
that's probably better.
Yes.
And he showed us around, and I must paint you a small picture here. You can cut this if you want. He loaded us into this minivan, on the dashboard of which was a
piranha.
Taxidermied
piranha.
And when you see the man, he is the man that would drive.
Would have a
that
taxidermied piranha, which apparently where he got it, I'm trying to remember where, that is now illegal to have. So
he got it.
So that
just
I think
the right
paints
time.
you a picture of that tour that we had.
But Michael Arcos was very good in getting us in touch, not only with actors, but with unique and interesting locations.
Oh yes.
And we got very lucky specifically with the sort of dueling houses structure of splitting the teams up. We got two houses on the same corner that happened to, all on its own,
total opposites.
Be total opposites.
One that it looked as if it's called Wonderland, but it looks as if it's this beautiful White House porch. You have these flowers everywhere. You go inside and there's tea sets, and it's just gorgeous. The other house, it's like a punk hoarder's dream, nightmare. I'm not sure which. And that was very interesting to stage, where it was more of just moving things around as opposed to putting things in places. But it was such a great contrast, and we were lucky that they literally were right across the street.
Both available the weekend that we needed them, and were willing to let us allocate the size of our resources that we could. It was very lucky to have that because it's a little bit further out. It wasn't quite next to everything, and and
Lady Stacy over at Wonderland was great.
She was a wonderful host.
She was a wonderful host, which we stayed there and kept that secret from players just in case.
Yeah, we were actually living there the week of the game in the back rooms, which was great to use it as both a production space and a location.
Yes.
So we got a little lucky with that one.
Very lucky.
I think we're very grateful for all of the local folks, both on the acting and the production side, that were able to help us, because being in LA, designing puzzles for a city that you visited and got in a sense for, but know you're going to have to do a lot of modification on the ground. It helped having people who could just run somewhere.
Because there's only so much depth you can get of a city in a couple days.
Right.
I think we did a fairly good job of getting great locations that were fun for people to look at.
That reminds me, one of the great early compliments we got, even when we were just scouting with a general idea of what the weekend would look like, is we actually sat down with a real crew, with a real Mardi Gras crew. We had originally thought we might be able to use for a parade or something, but it ended up not being possible for them to do. But when we pitched them the story, they were like, "You're basically just telling real life."
It's like, yeah, that's how crews are.
That's how crews, they hate each other.
Yeah,
they all hate each other.
There's all this drama in crews. We're like, oh, great.
And I knew we were always going to amp it up into the questionably or ambiguously supernatural realm. But the fact that that basic idea of a crew splitting and like, we're going to start our own thing is like apparently very resonant in this area. We felt like, all right, we're onto something here.
Yeah. So I think everything we did was perfect. There was not a problem in the design, and I think it was just any project you're ever in, you always look back, and to be honest, it's hard for when you're working on a project like this. You have grand designs, and no matter what, you always have to, as I like to say, kill your babies. You're gonna have something great, and there are definitely things that would love to modify or update, but you have only so much time, and I think that I enjoyed the playing with players and rolling with the punches, and that's part of the fun and drama and lack of sleep of the whole time.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
We got about 4 or 5 hours
dialogue.
this weekend of sleep, so that wasn't too bad. That's
Well, maybe we shouldn't have said that.
Oh, well.
No, I'm fully rested and well.
Fully
and we
rested.
managed our time very
Everything was great.
effectively.
We weren't replying to people on text message at 3 in the morning. No. All times of day.
It's a question that answering the idea of how, looking back on the experience after it having been done, I feel like it's difficult to react to what the thing is, because in this particular medium,
Yes.
you have all the plans you laid out and you know what the preparation was, but the nature of laying them out and actually setting them up means I don't actually get to see the scenes happen. So like, you write a book, you write a movie, you can look back on the movie and it's like, oh, I'm seeing the same thing the audience is seeing. I'm reading the same thing. With this, I only have the testimony of the players. Most of the scenes I didn't witness. I don't know what the actors
And
said.
when you're standing having to cue the DJ to turn the music down, and there's a huge crowd of people around them, and you have another person that's waving you when to do, you're not going to see that scene. You hope that it's similar to the way, but that's the thing, you hope it's the way you designed, but you also have, and you need a level of improvisation from the actors to react to the players, because the players they're they're part of that scene. You need to make sure that they are together, and so you never know what you're going to get. And
it's a little cheesy to say, but like, the experience lives in them, and
Yeah.
I'm just literally saying that. Like, it doesn't exist, and it's ephemeral. It's like there's no media I can point to. Like, we do our best with recaps and stuff, but that's like a character in universe summarizing events that has nothing to do with the actual game itself.
Yeah,
it's like,
you can never really document that experience in any way to get people to understand it.
we can use pull quotes from social media as much as we want, but that's still not being on the ground, meeting people, and really creating a borrowed phrase here, an alibi for interaction. We're here to create an alibi for the characters,
Yes.
players to interact with each other. I'd like to thank Sarah Thatcher for that phrase.
Yes.
Which she may have stolen from somebody else, but that's just where I got it from. I think I heard her do that at a presentation prior to that, but also I did want to mention the Immersive Design Summit because it's been great both with the players and the sort of festival people to reconnect with some of the people that we met at the Immersive Design Summit in January. Were you there?
I was not, but
Okay.
I talked
I
to
said
all
the
the people
royal we.
who were there before.
Okay.
So I probably have talked to all of them before they went and after.
I love that the Overlook Film Festival has sort of steeped itself in the immersive scene, which is still sort of emerging, but it's kind of lovely to have this small community of creators that is all figuring it out at the same time and realizing, okay, this is maybe a genre, maybe a medium to itself. We don't really know what to call it yet, but we're already starting to see the categories of experiences emerge. And while we had some concerns that the type of experience we were creating might not line up with what they had done for the Overlook in the previous years, this is going to reflect our sensibilities a little bit closer, and hopefully in the future we'll get a great diversity, because that's what I would be interested in as a player myself, is let's mix this up. I don't want to come to the same place every year and do the same type of thing and be, oh, I have these ciphers that I will use to uncover these things, and I'll have this to expect. It's
Everyone
like,
using their Sidekick app to basically, you go through the ARC lists. So we figured we'd try to avoid some of those, not make it too easy on the classics. But yeah, I think the other thing too is you're always going to have things that happen that make you change things, and I think that I wish one thing that actually we could have done, and this is just something you can't do, is have a little bit more depth of more time to really feel the city and see it, and find a bunch more locations to really get players to go to. And that's just something we just, I can't live here for a month beforehand to really give players what we wanted in our hearts and brains. But I think we gave a good taste to the city, and the good thing for the festival is it gives you a reason to come back because there's plenty more to see, and for the future designers, plenty more for them to design out of.
and that's just within the limitations of anything that's tied to a festival or an event-based sort of experience. It's like, this is supposed to live for 3 days. It's threading that needle of how much do we give so that it feels like at the end of the 3 days it's over, and you want that sense of, oh, I wish there was more, leave them wanting more, but also give just enough depth that the 3 days feel like they're filled out. It's a difficult balance to strike, but if it was an ongoing experience that people would return to or even do multiple times, but it had a chance to seep into the place it is, it would have been designed very differently. This was very specifically meant to live for 3 days and leave people not feeling like, oh, I'll go the rest of my life never being able to reclaim the glories of those 3 days.
Although they might. I mean, it was
never
beautiful.
know.
It was beautiful. One thing that I like to talk about is that I can design for any medium as long as I know what the medium is. And I think it's fun to play with this and then see what the festival is looking for, what we're looking for. One of our goals is to make it fairly accessible and try to bring people in every moment we could, have multiple rabbit holes and tell people things on social media. But then also, in that regard, figuring out what that medium was. So first of all, the city's the medium, right? But then you also have the festival itself, the schedule of the festival, what other things are going on in the festival, the other immersives, and trying to create space.
Not stepping on anyone's toes.
Not stepping on anyone's toes, making it so that there's space for other people to play other games, making it so they can go see movies, all these different things. And looking at that and saying, okay, well, these are what we have to play with. How do we mix all that together to also tell our story, play our game, and make players have this experience that we hope is something that they love and cherish?
And balancing those expectations was a very satisfying challenge. I think for me, working with this guy, our process, it tends toward, we both have opinions on every aspect of the design, but if we had to broadly sort of generalize, he'll tend to have more opinions about the puzzles and I'll tend to have more opinions about the narrative, even though we both contribute to both. That seems to be how it shakes out, just based on our own histories as a writer and a puzzle designer.
Yeah.
And so,
and experience. I think
experience
that's actually
in
something
general,
that
yeah.
I think that's where we meet a lot in that regard, is that you really enjoy the narrative, and I kind of more enjoy history stuff, but you really enjoy the broad, like bringing it through.
I'm a structuralist, essentially.
Yeah, much more so. I enjoy the puzzle and experience gameplay stuff, but then I think when we come together a lot is in the design of experience of the moments. Mm-hmm. So for instance, the idea of using the Pearl and Wonderland, those two very separate spaces, looking at where we want players to walk through, what we wanted them to see, music, all these different bits, the ways in which each actor piece was very different, trying to have that experience be what we kind of had in our minds, but then also going off of each other of how that kind of came together. And I think that designing that experience in flow, that's where where it meets together. And I think that was a lot of fun, having that back and forth and playing that way. And then also, designers playing with each other's, ideas, but then having to play with the players as they met those experiences and hopefully let them play with it and enjoy it.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful to this guy for bringing me in on this, because
happy to.
He had been reached out to by the festival, and I'm so glad to have been able to join him on this journey.
Well, I was lucky to bring you in, and we were lucky to do that work and meet at Google a long time ago for good old Niantic.
That's a short origin story for us. We
yes.
met at Niantic, a division of Google that then spun off and did Pokemon Go. So right before that spin-off,
we left it at the worst possible time, but had the best experience.
A very limited window of time. We had 8 glorious months on an alternate reality game called Endgame, and
it was a gauntlet of making puzzles and story, and we learned a lot from it. And it was very fun in that respect.
And the best of all, we met each other,
yes.
and now fruitful relationship.
I think so.
What a happy ending.
Yes.
No rituals required.
No rituals.
Not
required.
yet. No, it's over. It's over. We're done.
The game is over.
The game is over.
No one ever believes
or
you when
is
say the
it?
game is over.
It's over. It's over.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.